welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, the new year is not even here yet, and we're almost ready to see another war. And this war could very much involve us. In fact, our government, our generals, and everything has already pledged our full support to this, and that is what's going on with China and Taiwan. I know, just like I said the other day or yesterday or whatever with Russia, it's like, either do it or don't. I mean, do something because it's just dragging out. And I understand that's what seems to be happening with China and Taiwan. But I want to kind of bring you down to reality a little bit. I think that's that feeling that it's taking forever for something to be done or not done is only because we live in such an instantaneous society that we're used to things, happening like that. The reality is that, the preparation for wars and getting to that point where there's an actual war sometimes takes a while. And we are seeing things start to build up in that area that could certainly indicate that we are literally just days away from seeing China and Taiwan engage in some kind of conflict. And, of course, when that happens, that means the odds of us being involved, just like we are in Ukraine, and possibly a lot more, are greatly increased. And so I want to bring you some information, news that's happened in the last few days. I haven't been focused a whole lot on news the last few days for various reasons, but it's certainly time that we get in with it and talk about this. Mostly a big part of this video is a report that I want to read to you. This comes from an organization called Forward Observer. Some of you are familiar with them, others may not. Forward Observer is a business, it's a group of former military intelligence and military special operations guys that they put together daily briefs on what's going on in the news in regards to, intelligence matters, and they also give some of their opinion to it because they are obviously very astute in that area. That's what they've done all their life. That's what they've been trained for. Their briefs are used internationally. They're used by other businesses, companies. I have no financial business relationship with them at all. I'm not trying to plug who they are. I'm just telling you where this information comes from. And so I'm going to go ahead and I want to read this, and then we'll get on with the video because this says a lot. And I just want you to know that they put out these daily briefs, and this was an additional one. So they already put one out today, and they sent this one out addition to what's going on, that it's focused on just this one area. It says here that China may be positioning itself for a coercive military operation against Taiwan at the beginning of the Chinese New Year, which lasts from the 22nd to the 29th of January. That's about 35 days away, between 30 and 35 days away. These dates potentially coincide with with a Russian winter offensive in Ukraine. And this is something that we have, the news has, anyone that this is not a conspiracy, that it appears and all the intelligence indicates that Russia is preparing itself for a winter offensive. That's completely logical, okay? So Russia's preparing a winter offensive into Ukraine, and it's very possible that at that same time, China is preparing one on Taiwan. Additionally, starting a blockade at the end of January would give China roughly 60 days until the next ideal window for an amphibious landing on Taiwan in April, which I've said that in April is typically a good time. The seas are calm, and it makes for a good time if they wanted to do any type of amphibious landing. I've already said that on this channel. A Chinese blockade during this period would force Taiwan to use up most of its natural its reserve resources. Taiwan probably has about a month's supply of oil and natural gas. That's about how long Taiwan could last if they were blockaded, about a month. China recently conducted drills and rehearsals for amphibious invasions and naval strikes. We'll talk about that in a second. On Sunday, December 25th, China's Eastern Theater Command announced it was commencing a large-scale military exercise in the waters around Taiwan. The announcement described the military exercise as strike drills, a term which could be construed as meaning rehearsals for a future military move against Taiwan. On Monday, December 26th, a record 71 Chinese warplanes conducted incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, while 43 warplanes and 7 naval vessels crossed the median line into the Taiwan Straits. Interestingly, the exercise coincides with an ongoing joint China-Russia naval exercise just to the north in the East China Sea. The exercises include a number of identified Chinese naval surface combatants and likely, though unconfirmed, submarines and naval drones. The Chinese military operations also coincided with North Korean drone incursions into South Korea, which resulted in South Korean aircraft firing on and possibly shooting down a number of drones. South Korea responded by launching surveillance aircraft into North Korea to conduct reconnaissance overflights of sensitive North Korean facilities. Some Taiwan officials claimed the increased number of Chinese military exercises around Taiwan are in response to the U.S. Naval Defense Authorization Act that boosts military aid to Taiwan. It is unlikely, though, that the Chinese exercises were unplanned snap exercises. China likely knew in advance that the NDAA would provide a boost to Taiwan arms sales, since that portion of the bill was publicly discussed in the media well ahead of the vote. It is possible that China is positioning itself to make a coercive military move against Taiwan. Short of an overt military operation, China might also be ratcheting up the tensions with Taiwan as part of its gray zone campaign to encourage and negotiate reunification. Based on the language of the Chinese President Xi Jinping, the Foreign Minister Wang Yi, since the Communist Party Congress in October, Beijing would prefer a non-military solution to the Taiwan problem, but would transition to an incremental military option should the door to peace reunification close. China's President Xi is motivated to push for reunification sooner rather than later. An estimate made by both U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Mike Gilday. The U.S. is closing the hypersonic weapons gap with China, potentially neutralizing China's advantage with its anti-access aerial denial, long-range fires network. Additionally, continued arms sales to Taiwan and Japan are producing a prickly allied defense posture, which could strike key industrial targets deep in China's mainland in response to a move against Taiwan. The longer Xi waits, the more costly it will be for him to flex to the military option should the push for negotiations reunification fail. China and Russia, as plank-holding members of their No Limits Eastern Alliance, can play off of each other's actions to put U.S. and its allies on the horns of a dilemma. With Russia and Belarus possibly preparing for a winter offensive against Ukraine, China could use the resulting disruption to the U.S. and allied decision cycle to make a military move on Taiwan. Russia would likely benefit from that timing as well, as it would dilute U.S. and NATO attention and split an alliance which at present has mixed intentions over the relations with China. Indications and warnings currently present a path of such an outcome. So in other words, I know that was long. Some of you probably fell asleep or clicked off, and you wouldn't even know what I'm saying now anyways. But the point is that there's a lot of stuff building in the direction to indicate that there's going to be some type of action against Taiwan, probably within the next 30 days. And if that happens, that's just going to exacerbate. And it will affect you and I a lot more than Ukraine. You see, Ukraine, as we've all talked about, they're a big exporter of grain. In fact, a large percentage of the world's grain comes from Ukraine, except none of it comes to the United States. So while it's certainly affecting the markets, it's affected the price of grain. It's affected certain areas, especially, the Middle East, where they get a lot, certain parts of Europe. It's affected the Horn of Africa, places like that. It's not affected us directly because we don't get our grain from Ukraine, but we get a lot from Taiwan, a lot. Microchips, which are in virtually everything, right? I mean, microchips are in just about everything that there is, and the vast majority of them, if not every one of them that we use, come from Taiwan. And it would cause just a supply chain problem alone. It could very well overnight cause the supply chain to almost come to a crashing halt. Remember back a year or two ago when we were reporting and others were reporting of thousands of vehicles, American vehicles that were manufactured that were just sitting on lots, not able to be sold because there was a chip shortage, and that chip shortage still exists. It's not gone away. There's still a chip shortage. How much more are we going to see? There's been shortages in cell phones. People have not been able to buy certain appliances at the time that they need them. They have to wait. A lot of that, not all, but a lot of that has to do with chip shortages. Well, if it's completely cut off, if the supply chain of chips are shut off, it's going to be very devastating for this country. There's other things. That's just one. But it's going to be very devastating. And I've got some news here. This is some of the stuff that I just talked about that Forward Observer mentioned. And so we're going to go over that here real quick. Before I do, I know you all hate this, but I just want to let you know that when you support the affiliates in the links below, you're not just helping me and my family, you're helping our community, because our community, the things that we do that I talk about from time to time, a large percentage of that is funded through this channel. I do that on purpose. And so a lot of these little promotions that I mention, it's intended to try to raise a little money for our local community and the people that we help in. And there are several families. We don't talk about that because it's just not something I want to air on YouTube. But there are several families in our community in one type of capacity or another. We are directly helping them pay bills, do all that kind of stuff. So this channel funds well over 50% of those actions. So speaking of that, My Patriot Supply has a year-end sale. I'll mention it briefly. There's some pretty good items here. Look at this. Alexa Pro water filter, $279 on sale for $179. So it's $100 off. This is an excellent system. It's the one that we use in our home. This 4-week emergency food supply, $467 on sale for $277. Look at this. Potassium iodate tablets. Probably should have plenty of those on hand. Normally $24 a bottle, marked down to $8.95 a bottle. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on sale over the next few days. There's a link down in the description below. You can go to that and you can click on the year-end clearance sale tab. See that right there? And you can find these items. All right. Like I read earlier, China stages big military incursion, Taiwan says. We're talking 71 Chinese planes. These include fighter jets, drones, and others that have penetrated Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Now, of course, there's some discrepancy on what that zone, if it's legitimate or not. But the point is that China is increasing. They have been doing this on a regular basis, and it's getting more. There's more of them. They also, here's the strike drill. This is very provocational. No, I don't want a little pop-up. Whatever you want, I don't want it. And this was done also over the weekend. It's very possible that a lot of this stuff was done before or on Christmas Day. And a lot of times, if you look throughout history, actions of war and stuff are done around big holidays. I mean, I spoke the other day of how George Washington turned the tide of the war, really changed things in the American Revolution, because he chose to do a forced march in a blizzard on Christmas Day to take down the Hessian troops at Trenton, New Jersey. Many of you know that story. So it's possible. I know that China isn't a big Christmas person. I'm not sure about Taiwan. Taiwan is very Americanized, so it's possible. but I think it would be more of because the majority of Americans are chilling on Christmas. Even though they know that we wouldn't react, it's more of a thing. They can do it. People don't know about it too much until a couple of days later, and everyone's like, what? What do you mean what happened? They did a simulated attack on Taiwan, and we were all, doing our thing on Christmas. At the same time, China and Russia hold naval drills, practicing capturing a submarine. It's interesting. This was north of Taiwan. They just want a lot of these pop-up thingies. And then here's also South Korea scrambles jets, fires shots at North Korean drones. So this is and this isn't the only time since the Korean War, okay? But apparently there is a chance that South Korea actually shot down unmanned drones from North Korea that were in South Korea airspace. So I'm not saying that's an act of war, but that's definitely an escalation in aggressions there, that South Korea is shooting down military equipment out of the sky from North Korea. So we're seeing continued escalations there. And then all this is happening, the little article that the intelligence report I just read you, was talking about how the strain that this could put on American forces and NATO of fighting a war at two fronts. And I want you to listen to this. This is Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. Listen to what he says about the United States fighting a war on two fronts.
When it comes to Russia's war against Ukraine, if we were still in Afghanistan, it would have, I think, made much more complicated the support that we've been able to give and that others have been able to give Ukraine to resist and push back against the Russian aggression.
So in other words, long story short, is we probably don't have the capability of fighting a war on two fronts. Even though it was a few weeks ago, I believe it was the Heritage Foundation, but I could be wrong. Maybe it wasn't. But one of those types of groups did a study, and they concluded that the United States military is not capable of fighting a multi-front war, two fronts or more, not capable of it. We do not have the fighting force anymore. We don't have the amount of, whether it's troops, equipment, munitions, we just don't have the capability, okay? We have diluted down our military. We've talked about that in length on here too. And so there's a strong possibility, not saying it's going to happen. I'm not predicting anything, okay? And these people are like, well, it's been 30 days and China hasn't invaded Taiwan yet. Guess you were wrong. I'm not predicting anything, folks. I'm telling you that according to experts, which I showed you, and the fact that just seeing what's going on, that there is very much an increased possibility that China could make a move on Taiwan in the next 30 to 35 days. And if that happens, a lot of things are going to change. It doesn't mean the end of the world happens. I know, we thought that people were saying that before Russia invaded Ukraine, and then they did, and we're like, oh, the world didn't end. Well, it didn't, but things have progressively gotten worse since then. And I could make an entire video or more pointing that out if you don't know already. If China invades Taiwan, it's going to be worse. It's much more significant, okay? Ukraine, the only significance in Ukraine is that it's the money laundering country for all the elites in Washington, okay? It's where they go and take their money. It's the laundromat for their money. Taiwan is different. Taiwan is highly significant when it comes to the production of our technology. And if that gets taken out, if they get taken over, if they get blockaded, and we've already pledged that our military would be used to defend Taiwan, it's going to be a very big thing. And so, folks, this is the kind of stuff we have to get ready for. This is the kind of stuff we have to brace ourselves for. We were talking about just the other day the very real possibility of a new health crisis happening. We've seen it kind of build up in China. We've seen increases of what they call the triple-demic here in the United States, and the shortages of medicines. So you need to stock up and get ready for that. But you also need to get ready for this, because this, I think, will have much more significant problems here in the United States if this happens, because the relationship between us and Taiwan is much more significant. So certainly start preparing yourselves, getting stocked up. It's quite possible that several of these things could happen at once or within the same small time period and could cause a pretty major panic. You know, if a new health crisis is announced and China invades Taiwan, it could escalate things. And we're not even talking about escalations going on between Russia and Ukraine just in the last few days, because that's happened too. The point is, you need to get your houses in order, folks. Prepare, 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 mentally, physically, spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.